Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into something that's been keeping me up at night, and honestly, it should be keeping you up too. Are we sleepwalking into a real-life Torment Nexus? You know, that fictional creation from sci-fi that's meant to be a cautionary tale, not a blueprint? What if I told you that some of the biggest tech companies are inadvertently, or maybe even intentionally, building it? Stick around, because this is going to get unsettling. I'm not saying the sky is falling, but, well, maybe it's starting to crack. Let's unpack this, shall we? So, here's the news that kicked this whole thing off. A leaked video surfaced of an internal PlayStation test. In it, a developer is chatting with Aloy, the main character from Horizon Zero Dawn, using AI. Sounds cool, right? Except Aloy's world is a post-apocalyptic nightmare where rogue AI wiped out all life on Earth. The irony is thicker than motor oil. The original video was quickly scrubbed from the internet, thanks to some aggressive copyright claims. But the internet never forgets, does it? We have to ask ourselves, what message does this send? Are we so blinded by the potential of AI that we're ignoring the very real dangers? It's like learning to fly using a textbook written by Icarus. Then bam! Scarlett Johansson hits OpenAI with a lawsuit, and rightfully so. OpenAI allegedly created an AI voice that sounded suspiciously like Samantha, the AI she voiced in the movie Her. And to add insult to injury, Sam Altman, OpenAI CEO, tweeted her right after the launch. Seriously? It's like they're not even trying to hide it. Now, whether or not she has a legal case is up to the lawyers, but the public outcry was deafening. This isn't just about celebrity impersonation. It's about the unchecked power of AI and the arrogance of the tech giants who wield it. Johansson provided hours of dialogue and interviews. It's not about the money, it's about control. It's about protecting our creative identities in a world increasingly dominated by algorithms. The implications are staggering. This brings us to the heart of the matter, the Torment Nexus. It's that sci-fi trope where a tech company looks at a dystopian warning and says, yeah, let's build that. Think flamethrowers on robot dogs or killer drones. These aren't blueprints for a better future. They're cautionary tales about the dangers of unchecked technological advancement. The Terminator wasn't supposed to be an instruction manual, people. We've seen it time and time again. Sci-fi writers create these worlds to explore the potential consequences of our actions. But somewhere along the line, some tech bros decided they were actually aspirational. It's like reading Frankenstein and thinking, what a great idea for a side hustle. Let's talk about Minority Report. The idea of predicting crime before it happens is seductive, but the reality is far more complex and far more dangerous. The problem is that in fiction, these technologies work. In the real world, they're riddled with bias and prone to error. Predictive policing algorithms often rely on demographic data, blurring the line between crime prevention and racial profiling. Remember the case in Chicago where a black man was placed on a predictive heat list and ended up getting shot because people assumed he was a police informant? The algorithm designed to prevent crime actually caused the crime it predicted. It's a tragic example of how good intentions can pave the road to hell, especially when fueled by flawed data and unchecked power. This isn't just a theoretical problem. It's happening now, and it's disproportionately affecting marginalized communities. We need to be incredibly careful about how we use these technologies, or we risk creating a self-fulfilling prophecy of injustice. Now, I know some of you are thinking, but technology has always been a force for good. And to some extent, you're right. Technology has lifted billions out of poverty, extended lifespans, and connected the world in unprecedented ways. But we can't let that blind us to the potential downsides. We're entering a new era where technology is becoming increasingly autonomous and increasingly powerful, and we don't fully understand the consequences. We're like kids playing with fire. We might get lucky and cook a delicious meal, but we might also burn the house down. We need to be realistic about the risks and take steps to mitigate them. This isn't about being anti-technology. It's about being pro-humanity. This brings us to the critiques of science fiction itself. Writers like Charles Stross and Tyler Austin Harper argue that sci-fi has inadvertently inspired the very dystopias it was meant to warn against. They point to the fact that many tech billionaires grew up reading sci-fi and may have misinterpreted cautionary tales as roadmaps. Stross argues that science fiction has instilled bad values and bad visions of the future in these tech entrepreneurs. He points to ideologies like transhumanism, extropianism, and long-termism, which are popular in Silicon Valley and often portrayed in science fiction. Harper goes even further, arguing that science fiction is not politically effective and that it inspires the creation of technologies that are ultimately harmful. He specifically calls out AI as being primed to be the most disruptive, damaging, racist, immiserating, and potentially apocalyptic of the 21st century. Now, I don't necessarily agree with everything Strauss and Harper say, but they raise important points. We need to be critical of the stories we tell ourselves about the future and the values they promote. We need to ask ourselves, are we creating a future that we actually want to live in, or are we simply sleepwalking into a dystopia? Strauss highlights a specific ideology driving many tech entrepreneurs, which he calls TESCREAL: transhumanism, extropianism, singularitarianism, cosmism, rationalism, effective altruism, and long-termism. Now, these are complex and often overlapping beliefs, but they share a common thread: the belief that technology can solve all of humanity's problems and that we should strive to transcend our biological limitations. Transhumanism, for example, advocates for using technology to enhance human capabilities, potentially leading to radical life extension or even immortality. Extropianism is a similar philosophy that emphasizes technological progress and individual freedom. Singularitarianism focuses on the idea of a technological singularity, a hypothetical point in time when AI becomes so advanced that it surpasses human intelligence and leads to unpredictable and potentially catastrophic changes. Cosmism is a belief in the exploration and colonization of space, often with the goal of escaping Earth's limitations. Rationalism emphasizes reason and logic as the primary sources of knowledge. Effective altruism is a philosophy that seeks to maximize the positive impact of one's actions, often through charitable giving or career choices. And long-termism prioritizes the long-term future of humanity, even at the expense of present-day concerns. While these ideologies may sound appealing in theory, they can also lead to dangerous consequences if taken to extremes. They can justify risky technological experiments, disregard ethical concerns, and prioritize the needs of future generations over the needs of those living today. We need to be aware of these ideologies and their potential impacts, and we need to ensure that they don't drive us towards a dystopian future. Strauss also points to the influence of early science fiction writers like Hugo Gernsback, who promoted a combination of capitalist success, technological solutionism, and frontier colonialism in his magazines. Gernsback's vision of the future was one where technology would solve all of humanity's problems and where entrepreneurs would lead the way to a utopian society. However, this vision also had a dark side. It often ignored the social and ethical implications of technological progress, and it glorified the conquest and exploitation of new frontiers. Gernsback's rival, John W. Campbell, Jr., was also known for his racist, sexist, and anti-communist views, which were often reflected in his science fiction stories. Strauss argues that these early science fiction writers helped to shape the values and beliefs of the tech billionaires who are building our future today. While I think it's an oversimplification to blame science fiction for all of our problems, I do think it's important to recognize the influence that these stories have had on our culture and our thinking about the future. We need to be aware of the biases and assumptions that are embedded in these stories, and we need to challenge them when necessary. We need to create new stories about the future that are more inclusive, more equitable, and more sustainable. Harper raises a key issue. It's difficult to prove that science fiction actually has a political effect. Can we really say for sure that reading dystopian novels leads people to create dystopian technologies? It's hard to test this hypothesis empirically. Maybe people simply gravitate towards stories that align with their existing values. In statistics, this is known as the problem of exogeneity. It's hard to determine whether one variable, reading science fiction, actually causes another variable, creating dystopian technologies, or whether there's some other factor at play. For example, maybe people who are already inclined towards technological solutionism are also more likely to read science fiction. In that case, reading science fiction wouldn't be the cause of their technological solutionism. It would simply be a reflection of it. This is a complex issue, and there's no easy answer. But I think it's important to acknowledge the limitations of our knowledge and to avoid making overly simplistic claims about the relationship between science fiction and reality. We need to be nuanced and critical in our analysis, and we need to avoid falling into the trap of blaming science fiction for all of our problems. Harper argues that science fiction may inspire the creation of new technologies, but that most of those technologies are bad. He points to the internet and cell phones as examples of technologies that have had an ambiguous overall impact on human welfare. He also argues that AI is primed to be the most disruptive, damaging, racist, immiserating, and potentially apocalyptic of the 21st century. Now, I disagree with Harper's pessimistic assessment of technology. I think it's important to recognize the many positive impacts that technology has had on our world. But I also think it's important to be realistic about the risks and to take steps to mitigate them. One example of how science fiction can inspire positive technological innovation is in the field of climate fiction. Climate fiction, or sci-fi, is a genre of science fiction that deals with the impacts of climate change. These stories can help to raise awareness about the issue and to inspire people to take action. They can also stir the imagination of the scientists and engineers who are working on renewable energy technologies like solar power and batteries. Without these green energy technologies, we would face a bitter choice between runaway climate change and degrowth. But thanks to technologists, we no longer face that trade-off. If those technologists were inspired by sci-fi, that's a pretty huge win for the genre. This shows that science fiction can be a powerful force for good, as long as we're careful about the stories we tell and the values they promote. Ultimately, the debate over the influence of science fiction comes down to a question of techno-pessimism versus techno-optimism. Techno-pessimists believe that technology is inherently dangerous and that it will ultimately lead to our downfall. Techno-optimists believe that technology is a force for good and that it will solve all of our problems. The truth, of course, is somewhere in between. Technology is a tool, and like any tool, it can be used for good or for evil. It's up to us to decide how we use it. We can't simply bury our heads in the sand and pretend that technology doesn't exist. We need to engage with it critically and thoughtfully, and we need to ensure that it's used to create a better future for all of humanity. This means being aware of the risks and taking steps to mitigate them. It also means being open to new possibilities and embracing the potential of technology to solve some of our most pressing problems. The future is not predetermined. It's up to us to create it. And science fiction can play a valuable role in helping us to imagine and build that future. So what's the solution? How do we avoid building the Torment Nexus? First, we need to prioritize ethical AI development. That means building AI systems that are transparent, accountable, and fair. It means ensuring that AI is used to augment human capabilities, not replace them. It means investing in education and training to prepare workers for the changing job market. It also means fostering a culture of critical thinking and skepticism, so that we don't blindly accept the promises of tech companies without questioning their motives. We need to demand more from our tech leaders. We need to hold them accountable for the impact of their technologies on society. We need to push for regulations that protect our privacy, our jobs, and our democratic institutions. The future of AI is not predetermined. It's up to us to shape it. And if we want to avoid building the Torment Nexus, we need to start acting now. Look, I know this has been a bit of a downer, but I wanted to bring these critical issues to your attention. We're at a crossroads. The choices we make today about AI and technology will determine the kind of world we live in tomorrow. Are we going to build a future where technology serves humanity, or a future where humanity serves technology? The answer is up to us. So what can you do? Stay informed. Question everything. Demand accountability. And most importantly, don't let yourself become complacent. The future is not something that happens to us. It's something we create. Let's make sure we create a future that's worth living in. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more thought-provoking content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.